Change your conception of yourself, and you will automatically change the world in which you live. Do not try to change people. They are only messengers telling you who you are. Revalue yourself, and they will confirm the change. My experiences have convinced me that there's no way to bring about the perfection we seek other than by the transformation of ourselves. As soon as we succeed in transforming ourselves, the world will melt magically before our eyes and reshape itself in harmony with that which our transformation affirms. We fashion the world that surrounds us by the intensity of our imagination and feeling, and we illuminate or darken our lives by the concepts we hold of ourselves. Nothing is more important to us than our conception of ourselves, and especially is true of our concept of the deep, dimensionally greater one within us. Those that help or hinder us, whether they know it or not, are the servants of that law which shapes outward circumstances in harmony with our inner nature. It is our conception of ourselves which frees or constrains us, though it may use material agencies to achieve its purpose. Because life molds the outer world to reflect the inner arrangement of our minds, there's no way to bring about the outer perfection we seek other than by the transformation of ourselves. No help cometh from without. The hills to which we lift our eyes are those of an inner range. It is thus to our own consciousness that we must turn as the only reality, the only foundation on which all phenomena can be explained. We can rely absolutely on the justice of this law to give us only that which is of the nature of ourselves. To attempt to change the world before we change our concept of ourselves is to struggle against the very nature of things. There can be no outer change until there is first an inner change. As within, so without. I'm not advocating philosophical indifference when I suggest that we should imagine ourselves as already that which we want to be, living in a mental atmosphere of greatness, rather than using physical means and arguments to bring about the desired changes. Everything we do, unaccompanied by a change of consciousness, is but futile readjustment of surfaces. However we toil or struggle, we can never receive more than our concepts of self affirm. To protest against anything which happens to us is to protest against the law of our own being and our rulership over our own destiny. The circumstances of my life are too closely related to my conception of myself not to have been formed by my own spirit from some dimensionally larger storehouse of my being. If there's pain to me in these happenings, I should look within myself for the cause. For I am moved here and there and made to live in a world in harmony with my concept of myself. If we would become as emotionally aroused over our ideas as we become over our dislikes, we would ascend to the plane of our ideal as easily as we now descend to the level of our hates. Love and hate have a magical transforming power, and we grow through their exercise into the likeness of what we contemplate. By intensity of hatred, we create in ourselves the character we imagine in our enemies. Qualities die for want of attention, so the unlovely states might be best rubbed out by imagining beauty for ashes and joy for mourning, rather than by direct attacks on the state from which we would be free. Whatsoever things are lovely and of good rapport, think on these things, for we become that which we are in rapport. There's nothing to change but our concept of self. As soon as we succeed in transforming ourselves, our world will dissolve and reshape itself in harmony with that which our change affirms. I, by descent in consciousness, have brought about the imperfection that I see. In the divine economy, nothing is lost. We cannot lose anything save by descent in consciousness from the sphere where the thing has its natural life. I know beyond all doubt that there is nothing for man to do but to change his own concept of himself to assume greatness and sustain this assumption. If we walk as though we are already the ideal we serve, we will rise to the level of our assumption and find a world in harmony with our assumption. We will not have to lift a finger to make it so, for it is already so. It was always so. You and I have descended in consciousness to the level where we now find ourselves, and we see imperfection because we have descended. When we begin to ascend while here in this three-dimensional world, we find that we move in an entirely different environment. We have entirely different circles of friends and an entirely different world while still living here. We know the great mystery of the statement, I am in the world, but not of it. Instead of changing things, I would suggest to all to identify themselves with the ideal they contemplate. What would the feeling be like were you of too pure eyes to behold inequity, if you all things were pure and you were without condemnation? Contemplate the ideal state and identify yourself with it, and you will transform your world and ascend Jacob's ladder of awareness. The only thing that has fallen is your concept of self. You see the broken parts, which really are not broken. You are seeing them through distorted eyes, as though you were in one of those peculiar amusement galleries where a man walks before a mirror and he's elongated, yet he's the same man. Or he looks into another mirror and he's all big and fat. These things are seen today because man is what he is. There is no one to change but self. All you need to do to make men and women lovely in this world is to make yourself lovely. You are incapable of seeing anything that is unlovely when you establish within your own mind's eye the fact that you are lovely. It is far better to know this than to know anything else in the world. It takes courage, boundless courage, because many, after having heard this truth, will still be inclined to blame others for their predicament. Man finds it so difficult to turn to himself, to his own consciousness, as to the only reality. Now listen to these words. No man can come to me except the Father which hath sent me draw him. I and my Father are one. A man can receive nothing except it be given him from heaven. Therefore doth my Father love me, because I lay down my life, that I might take it again. No man taketh from me, but I lay it down myself. You did not choose me, I have chosen you. My concept of myself molds a world in harmony with itself and draws men to tell me constantly, by their behavior, who I am. The most important thing in this world to you is your concept of self. When you dislike your environment, the circumstances of life, and the behavior of men, ask yourself, who am I? It is your answer to this question that is the cause of your dislikes. If you do not condemn self, there will be no man in your world to condemn you. If you are living in the consciousness of your ideal, you will see nothing to condemn. To the pure, all things are pure. Learn to discipline your mind, for only the disciplined mind can maintain the feeling of the wish fulfilled. If what you had imagined has not come into being, it is because you have not severed the ties that bind you to the level where you now stand. You must break your mechanical reaction to life in order to change your life track. The only reason for this teaching is to encourage you and push you up the vertical line of awareness. It is very important for you to learn to be uncritical of yourself. For if you are not, you will justify your behavior, which will cause you to remain in your present state. But if you will stop being critical, you will stop the negative thoughts that bind you to your present state and move out of it into another. There are 3 ways to clear your mind of the trees of traditional wrong thinking. They are uncritical observation, non-identification, and sacrifice of the state you formerly believed yourself to be. Through uncritical observation, you will encounter your particular state. If you don't like the role the state requires you to play, as it unfolds, stop reacting to it until you reach the point where you no longer react. When you continue to react, you bind yourself to a state of consciousness, anchoring you. Where I am is always what I am. Establish one I within yourself, not a number of I's. The I roots out all secondary causes and clears the mind of the power to enslave. Your belief in powers external to you is a tree which must be rooted out of your mind. Begin now to use this technique, and you will realize your every dream. But first you must have a dream, a desire for something, as desire is your springboard of action. Define your objective. If it were fulfilled now, where would you be physically? What would the world look like? Would your wife, husband, mother, father, or friends see you differently? Feel their presence, see the joy expressed on their faces, and hear their congratulations. Repeat this act until you have the feeling of accomplishment. Then, having assumed the feeling of completion, remain faithful to it. For your assumption contains within itself all of the plans and power necessary for its externalization. You need do nothing on the outside, for by your assumption, your mind is being rearranged. And what it confirms, it externalizes. Your desire may be for an improvement in your financial position, your social circle, your health, your relationships, or a deeper understanding of the mystery. The desire is up to you, but when put into practice, this technique will never fail you. The infinite series of levels of awareness, with its many states, some lovely and some not so lovely, is within you. The state capable of wounding or healing, killing or making alive, is within you. They are all psychological states, completely furnished and ready to externalize themselves in your world. And if having entered a particular state, you do not care to remain there, you may leave it by the same technique it was entered, through the act of assumption. It is so easy to feel sorry for yourself, and so very difficult to give up this feeling, but you cannot enter another state until you do. No one can uproot the weeds of self-pity or the trees of so-called second causes for you. You must uproot them yourself. Start now to observe your reactions to life, and do not allow yourself to become identified with any unlovely state. Sacrifice your little hurts, your grievances, in belief in secondary causes. Awake, test yourself, and you will discover that the fault you see in the other exists in you. Blessed are you when your mental comprehension has been enlarged by the removal of the trees of traditional wrong thinking. For only then will you know that all is consciousness, and consciousness is all. You will know that any secondary cause is a tyrant, and if you believe in an outside power, you are fighting a losing battle. Emerson once said, "Man surrounds himself with the true image of himself. As every spirit builds for itself a house, beyond its house, a world beyond its world. What you are, that only can you see. Therefore build yourself a world as you would like it to be, a world beyond the world now visible to you. The world you desire exists and will unfold itself in great proportions when you, all spirit, surround yourself with the true image of yourself as you would like to be." Think of your world as a canvas with the pictures painted there by the arrangement of your mind. Your I amness, consciousness, has already arranged as many patterns for your canvas as there are people walking the earth. Turn to yourself in claiming that your desire exists. Feel yourself move right into its center. Then paint your canvas of consciousness. Everything is there at your disposal. Its reality is up to you in the intensity of your desire. Always look to self, for your consciousness is the sole cause of the phenomena of your individual life. Perhaps you have imagined something which never came to pass, and you feel that you have failed. But I tell you, there's only one cause for failure, and that is the absence of the feeling of naturalness. It takes time for an assumption to become a fact, and a desire is fulfilled proportionate to the degree of naturalness of the feeling of possession. If something does not feel natural to you, it is not in your nature. To ask in my name is to ask in my nature or character. Therefore, when you ask, you must feel you already are that which you are seeking. Whatsoever you desire, when you pray, believe that you have received it, and you will. It is important to feel yourself right into your wish fulfilled, for consciousness is the only reality, and everything you see is nothing more than an outpicturing of a state of consciousness. It is stupid to seek a thing before you establish its cause. An effect depends upon a state of consciousness, and you cannot find the effect without being its cause. And if you do not feel the naturalness of the desired state, you cannot externalize it, for consciousness is very observable. Ask yourself, how long have you been conscious of being what you want to be? To what extent do you feel its reality now? Matthew tells us, "O you faithless and perverse generation, how long shall I be with you?" Do you have faith in what you are conscious of? I hope so, for without faith, it is impossible to achieve anything. It is the substance of the thing hoped for and the cause of all phenomena. The word perverse means to turn the wrong way, without aim, fixity or one-pointedness of purpose. When the latest headline or news update can turn you away from your desire, you are perverse and fail. But if success is your goal, its mood must be worn until the feeling of being successful is so natural you cannot turn away from it. On the other hand, importunity means brazen impudence. If you will so persist in your assumption, your brazen impudence will not allow you to accept the evidence of your senses when they deny your assumption, but will rearrange the substance called life into the pattern of your assumption. This world moves with the necessity of molding and manifesting the arrangement of the individual's mind. It is important to persist until fulfillment becomes your nature. Changes begin to occur at their moment of naturalness. If you will not take no for an answer, but persist in the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you will be blessed with its externalization. Change your conception of yourself, and you will automatically change the world in which you live. Do not try to change people. They are only messengers telling you who you are. Revalue yourself, and they will confirm the change.